Shifting gears a little bit, we were talking about nerd culture and comic books and sci-fi and all that fun stuff because there is a new trailer for the upcoming J.J. Abrams Star Wars film. We have to talk about something a lot less fun. Talk about murder. Murder committed ostensibly by one of the best athletes on the planet, Aaron Hernandez. For those of you who are not big football fans, I mean, really was on the precipice of becoming one of the more dominant offensive players in the league. Had recently signed a $40 million contract with the Patriots, who he had been with since really making his a profound impact on the league. A tremendous athlete, very gifted guy. And now he will spend the rest of his life in jail without the possibility of parole because he killed a young man, Odin Lloyd. Wow. All right, Adam Heller on the phone to talk about Mr. Hernandez and the case. You are a behavior analyst. Is that correct, Mr. Heller?
That's correct, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. What can you, as a behavior analyst, conclude from someone like Mr. Hernandez, who, again, ostensibly had everything going for him, a thriving career, the adulation of many, and a new child, a successful domestic life, seemingly. What would compel someone to engage in such behavior?
Well, we teach these athletes, especially football players, to behave like animals. And I don't mean just in college or in high school, but this starts all the way back in Pee Wee football. Mm-hmm. So they're taught to be animals on the field. They're taught how to behave in the worst possible fashion. Many of them have poor or minimal parenting, so they never learn the tools or the strategies how to behave off of the field. And then as they progress, and guys like Aaron Hernandez, they start to get treated like royalty. And they're treated like there are no restrictions. They're allowed to do anything they want. And it's no surprise that people like this go off. In this case, it's murder. But we see this kind of behavior all the time. Anything from Aaron Hernandez here to, the acting out of Justin Bieber and Lindsay Lohan and Bobby Christina. People are trained to behave this way, and there's really a lot of culpability to go around.
And listen, a certain level of it. I mean, you brought up Justin Bieber. A lot of people like to give him flack, and I'm not going to go out and buy Justin Bieber albums, but I like to think, I always like to put it in the perspective of if I was his age with the amount of money and fame and the amount of access to chicks that he has, I would be far worse. And I like to consider myself a pretty reasonable, pretty moral person. And I'm just being honest. I can't imagine having a private jet and millions of female fans and access to drugs and not being far worse than Justin Bieber.
And part of that is the reason that we can't be so surprised when athletes and celebrities act out. And again, I'm a huge fan of personal responsibility, mm-hmm. And these people really don't have the tools. Pro football, for example, just in the month of March, 6 NFL players arrested or charged. In the month of February, another 6. 17 in the first 3 months of the year. That's 250 times the national average of people being arrested. It's a huge problem. So it can't just be the individual. Now, I've helped a lot of athletes over the years. They come to me typically when they're either ex-athletes and they want to get rid of their physical pain or create some great strategies for life, or they come to me when they are athletes and because I'm so helpful with the mind-body, so when they get the 2-iron in their hands, how they can do a better job with performance or at the free throw line or up at the plate. But the problem is most of these people, or at least a lot of them, these aren't the Rhodes Scholar, Harvard graduates. These
Sure.
are people that have come through some pretty rough areas, and they didn't develop the tools. So there needs to be something to put in place by the NFL, by the NBA, by these leagues, by NCAA, to help starting to train these people and give them the tools so that they can survive when the girls are wrapped around the block waiting to get to them.
Sure.
But we're talking about murder here. We're talking about Ray Rice, who slugged his then fiancée in the elevator. These are behaviors that seem unconscionable, But once again, these people are trained to be lions, and it's not like they can just walk off of the field with the tools they have and grab a door handle and all of a sudden be docile, great young men.
Mr. Heller, do you mind holding on for one break? I have so many questions to ask you. You're author of Zero Pain Now, a behavioral analyst, Adam Heller on the phone. Do you mind sticking around?
I'd love to.
Okay, thank you so much. 1-800-222-5222 is the number if you'd like to join us. Got to take a quick break right here on Talk Radio 790 KBC.
And KABC does traffic first on the 4s when you need it most. Things have gotten worse on the 110 northbound. We had the problem around 5th, 6th Street in the 2 right lanes, and I said it wasn't looking all that bad. Now it looks fairly thick from Century off and on all the way up to Dodger Stadium on the 110. 405 northbound off and on, seeing some slow going from Florence up to Mulholland. Then it kind of opens up until you get up to Nordhoff. Heavy traffic on the 10 eastbound from PCH over to Alameda downtown, and 10 eastbound at the 57 had the center lane blocked. Only KABC has traffic first on the 4s. Next report coming up at 2:54. John Wolf, 790 KABC.
Retired or retiring and can't afford to go through another stock market crash like 2008? It's critical to have a sell strategy in your plan. That way, you will know when it's time to protect what you have and get out. Register now for the free Money Matters Retirement Seminar, April 21st in Fountain Valley, April 23rd in Sherman Oaks, April 24th in Manhattan Beach, or Saturday, April 25th in Anaheim. Go to moneymatters.net. That's moneymatters.net. Pick your date, time, location, and register at moneymatters.net or call 800-994-0302.
Coming up on the next drive home with Jillian Barbary and John Phillips, we'll tell you about Sofia Vergara's bizarre lawsuit.
What happened?
Her ex is suing her. Where do you hear this story? It's unbelievable.
And it's for something you might have eaten for breakfast.
You wish. Maybe Joe Manganiello did.
It was the most painful 20 minutes of my life. How is that funny?
Live and local, right after Psycho Mike and Dr. Drew on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Yeah, it is Talk Radio 790 KBC, and in about 15 minutes, John and Jillian do take over, like they just said. Right now, I am happy to be on the phone with Adam Heller. He is a behavior analyst and author of the book No Pain Now. Zero Pain Now, I apologize. Also with associated workbooks that go along with the book, and that is actually, on a slight tangent, a very, very important book for those of you who have chronic pain and do not want to fall victim to the problem of our day, which I think is prescription opiate-based painkillers. All right, we're talking about Aaron Hernandez in particular, and you brought up just the idea, the culture that is in, especially the NFL, as with all professional sports, where these guys are treated like royalty since they're a very young age, and also encouraged to be exceptionally violent. But you also see in the off-field antics with a lot of NFL players in particular, there is an underlying culture of misogyny and this kind of view of using and abusing women. Is that something that kind of comes hand in hand, or does one develop out of the other, do you feel, Mr. Heller?
Well, I think it's a dynamic. I think it goes both ways, back and forth. These guys, again, they're so high on the pedestal, but they're the modern day caveman.
Right.
You know, we're not talking about tennis players and golfers. They have their own problems. The modern day caveman. So misogyny is not, in that state of mind, such a surprising feat or fact. And many of these women allow them to get away with this.
Right.
Back to Ray Rice, slugged his fiancee wife. She was there to testify for him and try and help him out afterwards. So there's mental, emotional problems on both sides. And I should really point out, there's 4 kinds of pain. There's physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, and spiritual pain. And all of us are doing our best to not suffer any of those pain. We deal with all of them, but we're all trying to get away from it. So people act out, whether it be football players or celebrity Justin Bieber's or you and me. People act out when they're suffering, when they don't feel good. One of the things, because if they want to, one of the things about Aaron Hernandez that they say about him is how thin-skinned he was.
Right.
If he gets up and he's feeling like $10 million on top of the world, there's no reason to be thin-skinned. So one of the most important things, people act out when they don't feel good. And we need to teach people how to feel good for no good reason at all. Even these people. I go back to the They just don't have tools and strategies to operate in normal day-to-day social circumstances.
And oftentimes, do you feel, Mr. Heller, that even identifying pain or suffering or the idea of depression, any of these, whatever comes from childhood trauma, when you're talking about a culture like the NFL or hip hop music, things that are very steeped in machismo, even identifying these problems would be looked at as some type of weakness, right? I mean, these are not guys who are encouraged to get in touch with their feelings.
Absolutely. They're encouraged to go out there, do war. When they hurt themselves, take medication to stop the pain and get back out there. So there's no question about that. Once again, it really comes down to the tools they don't have. It would be very easy if you and I were in that situation. We might push the envelope a little bit. Chances are we wouldn't go nearly as far as these guys are going. We've got better tools. We've got better strategies. We're better able to handle those situations.
Talking to Adam Heller. He is a behavior analyst. We're talking about the Aaron Hernandez case. He is sentenced to life in prison without the opportunity for parole. He is also, look, I mean, this guy's criminal record is, it also includes things like another double homicide, possibly over a spilled drink. And getting back to you saying that he is so thin-skinned. I'm curious, Mr. Heller, how do you feel as a behavioral analyst about the arrogance, the seeming arrogance of Mr. Hernandez as he was being the entire proceedings of the court case during the verdict being read? It didn't seem as if he was acknowledging that he had done something wrong. There didn't seem to be any from an amateur like myself. I don't have any knowledge with body language. There didn't seem to be any acknowledgement that he might have done something wrong.
Well, you're exactly right, because there was no acknowledgement that he did anything wrong, and it's very, very off-putting. Now, we don't know what kind of mask he's wearing. We don't know what's going on inside of him. Clearly, being faced with a lifetime in prison has got to have some emotion inside. But again, these guys are taught that when you go into the huddle and you come out there and you're going up against 300-pound guys, you can't show anything other than toughness. So once again, it's how he's trained to behave, and he does behave that way. And I want to comment on one thing you said before. Everybody has had childhood traumas. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that's ever been shown scientifically or any other way that those have to affect you as an adult. That's a really important comment. We've all gone through things on our own levels, but there's nothing that says because you had a bad childhood, you have to behave improperly or be depressed or be sad or be angry or anything else as an adult.
I agree with you completely. I think a lot of times people overlook what could be childhood trauma just because they don't equate it to the more popular, the more vicious types of childhood trauma. If they weren't molested or raped or beaten by their parents, they assume that they were devoid of trauma, when in actuality they probably encountered various types.
And well, I've worked with dozens of people in the physical pain world, dozens of people who were raped as kids and sexually abused and abused in all different formats. And these people aren't out killing. I've got 3 of them are MDs themselves, and others are psychiatrists, and others are psychologists, and others are professionals. So there's nothing about that says you have to go sideways.
Yeah.
It happens when you have the right tools. If there was somebody like me to work with these people, chances are maybe this guy would still be alive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Adam Heller is a behavioral analyst, and his book, again, is Zero Pain Now. Is there anywhere else where people can meet you if they're in need of your service, Mr. Heller?
Everything is at adamheller.com. Lots of free stuff there, too. And thanks so much for having me.
It truly was my pleasure. Thank you so much. 1-800-22